Okay, let's unpack this. For years, we've discussed artificial intelligence as this grand, almost futuristic concept.
Something that was always just over the horizon.
Exactly. But what the stack of sources we've reviewed today shows is that AI isn't just coming, it is profoundly and practically embedded in our daily lives
Right.
right now.
That's really the key shift we're tracking here. This deep dive isn't so much about the big philosophical questions around AI.
Yeah.
It's about the practical, real-world changes that are happening at, frankly, breakneck speed across these huge sectors. We're looking at specific, verifiable
The
examples.
predictive diagnostics.
Predictive diagnostics that save lives, personalized shopping that knows what you want before you do, and these incredibly customized tutoring systems.
So our mission today is pretty straightforward. We want to act as your guides, really, cutting through all the noise to get to the core insights.
And the trade-offs.
And the trade-offs. The practical aha moments for you, the curious learner. Our source material gives this really vivid snapshot of the acceleration, and we want you to walk away feeling, informed and ready for what's next.
We've basically structured this whole thing around 3 core pillars. These are the areas where AI is having the most immediate, tangible impact.
Okay.
So first, we'll tackle the diagnostic edge. This is all about how AI is fundamentally changing our approach to health and disease.
Then we move into commerce.
Right, the seamless transaction, which covers everything from physical stores to your online shopping cart. And finally, we'll look at the tailored classroom, where AI is adapting education to each and every student.
Excellent. Let's jump right into pillar 1 then. AI in healthcare, the predictive edge.
You said it before, and I think it's true. This is probably the most life-altering application we're discussing today. The foundational shift here is, well, it's moving healthcare from a reactive model.
Where you wait until you're sick and then go to the doctor.
Exactly. You wait for symptoms, then you treat the illness.
Yeah.
We're moving from that to a genuinely proactive model that's all about prediction and, ideally, prevention.
And our source material, it pointed to this one study that I found, truly groundbreaking. It was focused on identifying conditions before symptoms even start.
Before they manifest at all.
I mean, that sounds like science fiction, but the mechanism is just pure advanced computation. So the question I have, based on these reports, is what level of detection are we really talking about? Is it spotting a simple anomaly, or is it something way more complex?
It's a level of complexity that, frankly, far exceeds what even a team of human experts could manage.
Yep.
The human brain is phenomenal, at spotting patterns it's been trained to see.
Sure.
But we get instantly overwhelmed by the sheer volume and complexity of high-dimensional data that exists across dozens of variables all at the same time. AI is just a whole different ballgame.
So let's get into the mechanism of how this diagnosis actually works. The sources say these systems analyze vast data sets from patient records. When we say vast data sets, can we get specific? What actually goes into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So think about combining, say, 15 to 20 different data streams for a single patient and tracking them over a period of years. It's not just your standard clinical history.
Case more than my doctor's notes.
Oh, much more. We're talking about combining continuous vital sign monitoring, so data from your smartwatch, heart rate variability, sleep cycle data,
Oh, wow.
with your longitudinal lab work. So tiny fluctuations in dozens of blood biomarkers over time. Add to that your genetic predisposition profiles, daily activity that's tracked by wearables, and even environmental data.
Environmental data, like what?
Things like the localized air quality where you live, historical temperature exposure. The system can even factor in historical reactions you've had to certain medications. It pulls everything together.
That is truly high-dimensional. And if a doctor is looking at my chart, they're usually looking for 1 or 2 red flags, right? A spike in blood pressure, a specific tumor marker.
Exactly.
But what is the AI hunting for that eludes human experts?
It's hunting for these subtle, nonlinear correlations. A human expert is trained to follow, essentially, a diagnostic flowchart. If X is high, then you check Y. If Y is positive, you diagnose Z.
It's a set path.
It's a set path based on established thresholds. AI doesn't rely on those. It builds a map of what wellness looks like for you, specifically, and then it just monitors for these tiny, subtle deviations from your personal baseline.
Can you give us a concrete example, a nonlinear correlation? Because that sounds like the secret sauce here.
It is. So let's imagine a patient is in the very early stages of developing some kind of metabolic disorder. It's progressing slowly. None of their conventional markers are out of range. Their cholesterol is fine. Their blood sugar is fine.
So a standard checkup would say they're perfectly healthy.
perfectly healthy. But the AI finds a nonlinear correlation. It sees, 1, the patient has a specific genetic marker, let's call it X. 2, over the past 6 months, their average deep sleep duration has declined just slightly, that's why. And 3, this is the critical part, the micro-level variation in 5 different trace elements in their standard blood panel have all shifted downward, but by less than half a standard deviation.
So none of those things alone would raise a red flag.
Not a single one. But the AI finds that X, combined with Y and Z, creates a 92% predictive risk indicator for that specific metabolic disorder. And that indicator, that signature, it just doesn't appear in any human diagnostic manual. Not yet, anyway.
That's incredible. The AI is essentially discovering new disease signatures that are just hidden in the noise of what looks like normal data.
Exactly.
And this capability, it allows for more timely interventions, which, as the source material really hammers home, is the core revolutionary promise.
It completely changes the outcome for conditions like, say, certain cancers or neurodegenerative diseases or even chronic inflammatory disorders.
Yeah.
The difference between catching it a year early versus 6 months after symptoms appear.
It's huge.
It's the difference between a high probability of a cure, or at least management, and a low probability of just slowing the progression. You move from treating the damage to preventing it from ever happening in the first place. That's the value proposition for the patient.
But that raises a big question of trust, doesn't it? If the AI is spotting patterns that are so subtle they don't even exist in our current clinical flowcharts, the sources are very clear that this tech isn't ready to replace doctors. It's supposed to act as a valuable second opinion. So if the AI flags something that's totally counterintuitive, how does a doctor actually build trust in that and confirm a diagnosis based on patterns they can't see?
That is a tremendous intellectual and honestly psychological challenge for the entire medical profession. And it gets to a really important question. How does this integration of AI tools change the very definition of what expert knowledge even is?
So the doctor's role has to change.
It has to. The doctor has to transition from being the primary pattern matcher to being sort of a critical translator.
So they're interpreting what the AI is telling them.
Exactly. When the AI delivers a high-risk score based on one of these subtle correlations, the doctor's role is to apply their clinical judgment in what we might call the human context.
Meaning what?
Meaning they might order highly specialized, very targeted, probably expensive tests they would have never considered before, specifically to try and confirm the AI's prediction. They have to weigh the psychological impact on the patient of an early, maybe anxiety-inducing diagnosis, and then they have to design a holistic care plan that brings together the computational insight and, basic human empathy.
So expert knowledge shifts from diagnosing the present to strategically managing a predicted future.
You've nailed it. The AI frees them up from all the data sifting and redirects their focus to strategic, highly personalized care.
Okay, so let's shift from the individual to the population level. The sources also highlight AI models designed to predict where and when the next disease outbreak might happen.
Yes, and this is all about data fusion. It hinges entirely on integrating traditional public health records with all of these unstructured, real-world signals.
And the depth of that fusion is what makes it so predictive.
Right. The model is blending this high-fidelity traditional medical data, things like pharmacy sales of over-the-counter flu medicine or hospital bed occupancy rates, with environmental and, crucially, behavioral indicators. The source specifically mentions social media, news reports, and health records.
Okay, the social media activity part is where my mind starts to spin a little. What is the AI actually pulling from platforms like X or Facebook that would indicate a flu outbreak is coming? It's got to be more than just searching for the word sick.
Oh, it's far more sophisticated. The AI is doing what's called geotemporal analysis. It's looking for sudden, statistically significant spikes in disease-related keywords, coughing, aches, stomach bug, things like that.
Yeah.
But critically, it cross-references those keywords with behavioral changes in a very tightly defined geographic area.
Give me an example of a behavioral change.
Okay, so the AI might notice, say, a 40% localized drop in check-ins or reservations at gyms and restaurants within a specific zip code.
Right.
And it sees that drop happening at the exact same time as a spike in posts expressing fatigue or illness, all tagged within that same zip code. This sudden shift in social behavior, people just stopping their public activities, it signals widespread impairment.
I see.
The AI then fuses that signal with local news reports, maybe confirming similar outbreaks in surrounding counties, and perhaps a correlating spike in online searches for symptom relief in that area. That combined data stream creates this powerful predictive signal weeks before government labs even start confirming the first official cases.
And that kind of lead time, the lead time necessary to allocate resources and implement preventive measures, weeks of lead time must be immense for public health.
It's a staggering tactical advantage.
What can they actually do with 2 or 3 weeks of warning?
It lets them move from just planning to actual deployment.
Hmm.
For instance, they can immediately activate surge capacity planning in the specific hospitals the AI has flagged. They can pre-position mobile testing centers or stockpile PPE and antiviral meds in the predicted hot zones.
And public messaging.
Exactly. They can launch targeted, high-impact public information campaigns about hygiene and isolation measures focused on the most vulnerable neighborhoods. Without that lead time, they're just playing catch-up. They're trying to manage a surge that's already hit. With it, they're prepared and can, flatten the curve before it even gets started.
The sources do mention early trials that showed a lot of promise in predicting flu outbreaks weeks in advance. So that suggests the system has a pretty high level of accuracy right now.
It does. It shows it can handle cyclical, well-understood pathogens like the flu. The flu is a good training ground because it's complex, it's transmissible, it mutates, but the general behavioral patterns it creates are pretty predictable. But, and this is the critical context the sources really stress, the technology is still very much in its experimental phase.
So why the caution if the early results are so good?
Because the stakes are existential. If you scale this system up to try and detect a novel, high-mortality, rapidly mutating pathogen, well, the margin for error just shrinks to almost zero.
I see.
The development and testing has to make sure the model is robust against two huge types of failure. First, false positives. If the AI incorrectly predicts a major outbreak, you trigger massive, unnecessary government spending, you create public panic, and you completely erode trust in the system for next time.
And the second failure.
False negatives. If it misses a rapidly developing threat, it gives everyone a dangerous sense of security, and that can lead to catastrophic underpreparedness. So this experimental phase is all about maximizing reliability and transparency under maximum stress. You have to make sure the prediction isn't worse than the disease.
So whether we're talking about a single patient or an entire population, AI in healthcare is really about finding these subtle, actionable patterns hidden in just a mountain of data.
That's it.
Which provides a fantastic bridge to our second pillar.
Absolutely. We're shifting from saving lives to reshaping how we spend money and what we value in terms of convenience. If Section 1 was about predictive prognosis, Section 2 is all about predictive preference and profit. AI is radically transforming the customer journey in two really key retail environments.
Right. The acceleration of AI in commerce is probably the most visible shift for the average person.
Yeah.
We've all seen the headlines about stores getting rid of cashiers. So let's start there. In the physical world, the brick-and-mortar shops.
The core innovation here is these AI-driven checkout systems. They're being rolled out by major retailers, and they're designed to eliminate what the source material rightly calls the dreaded checkout line.
And it's not just a small improvement. It's a total erasure of the single biggest point of friction in physical retail.
Exactly.
So how does the technical engine behind this actually work? We know it's based on computer vision and machine learning, but what are the nuts and bolts of tracking thousands of shoppers and tens of thousands of products all at once?
It works on a kind of complex triangulation model.
Yeah.
First, you've got the computer vision. Hundreds of high-res cameras all over the store identify you as a unique customer when you walk in, usually by linking to your payment app or of a loyalty ID.
Okay, so it knows who I am.
It knows who you are. Second, the machine learning algorithms have been trained on this enormous library of products, so they can instantly identify and tell the difference between really similar items, like a 6-ounce bag of one branded chips versus an 8-ounce bag of another.
And what's the third part of that triangle?
The third part is the physical feedback loop. It comes from weight sensors that are embedded in the shelves themselves. So when you reach for a carton of milk, the computer vision confirms the item and the action of you picking it up, and the weight sensor confirms the change in inventory on the shelf.
And it gets added to my virtual cart.
Instantly.
Yeah.
And the machine learning is key because it's constantly getting better at differentiating. Does the customer actually buy that, or do they just pick it up, look at it, and then put it back?
So the system tracks everything, and when I walk out, it just automatically calculates the total and charges my account. It is the very definition of a seamless experience.
And the early feedback is clear. Customers overwhelmingly appreciate the speed and the convenience. It plays right into the modern consumer's demand for, Instant gratification and zero hassle.
And it must have a business impact.
Oh, a huge one. We're seeing something like a 20 to 30% reduction in the time people spend in the store. That translates directly to higher customer satisfaction, and for the retailer, it means higher throughput. They can serve more people and potentially see higher volume sales.
But this efficiency brings us right to the core trade-offs that the sources highlight. The material connects this directly to ongoing discussions about the implications for jobs and privacy. Let's start with jobs.
The impact on jobs is undeniable. These systems automate the exact tasks that were historically done by cashiers, by baggers, and by some inventory staff.
And the retail sector employs millions of people.
Millions globally.
Yeah.
It's undergoing a profound structural change. Now, the companies argue that these roles are being redefined. They're becoming customer experience guides or technology troubleshooters.
But that initial displacement is a huge socioeconomic challenge. You can't just assume that a cashier can instantly become a tech troubleshooter.
No, you can't. And the source material suggests that policymakers really need to look at the kind of retraining and upskilling infrastructure that's needed to manage this transition. The jobs aren't necessarily disappearing, but the type of labor required is shifting fast.
From transactional to something else.
From transactional tasks to relational and technical tasks. The challenge for society is making sure that the economic gains from all this efficiency don't just go to the retailers and the customers. They have to be balanced with real investment in the displaced workforce.
And then there's the other side of that coin. Privacy. Or maybe surveillance. This convenience is built on being under continuous, high-definition digital surveillance from the second you walk in the door.
The data that's collected is incredibly granular. It's not just what you bought. It's the path you took through the store, how long you hesitated in front of certain products, who you were with.
It can even track body language.
It can infer things from body language, yes. Things that might suggest frustration or contentment. All this behavior is tracked, cataloged, and linked directly back to you as an individual and to your financial history.
So the source notes that the big question for regulators and for us as consumers is how secure is that data? Who has access to it? And is the convenience actually worth giving up total anonymity in a public space?
That's the cost of frictionless retail. The store becomes a high-fidelity data collection engine. And the implication is that every decision you make in that physical space can now be monetized, well beyond the initial purchase. Consumers have to trust that these companies have rock-solid security and ethical guidelines to prevent that data from being used in manipulative or discriminatory ways.
Okay, let's move from the physical store to the online world. Personalization algorithms are nothing new, but they are getting exponentially more powerful. E-commerce giants are using AI to personalize shopping to a degree that is almost unsettling.
Yes, hyper-personalization. And it's powered by data streams that go way beyond the borders of the retailer's own website. The sources highlight this specifically. It's not just your browsing history or your purchase patterns. The critical new piece is the integration of social media activity.
Let's focus on that. How is my social media data being used to predict what I want to buy on a completely different website?
The AI is doing deep semantic and sentiment analysis on your public-facing social media. It's looking for shifts in your lifestyle, your stated goals, or even just your emotional state.
So if I post about feeling burnt out?
Right. If you post a thread about feeling burnt out and needing a vacation, or if you consistently like posts about minimalist living or high-end kitchen gadgets, the e-commerce AI instantly flags that as latent purchasing intent.
So the algorithm is connecting my public persona, my emotional life, to specific commercial needs, often before I've even consciously connected those dots myself.
Exactly. It moves beyond showing you products related to what you just bought. That's simple correlation. To showing you products related to the person you want to become. That's predictive desire.
So if I mention I'm moving,
If you mention you're moving to a colder climate, the AI doesn't wait for you to search for winter coat. It proactively starts showing you hyper-targeted ads for high-margin, ethically sourced down jackets that just so happen to fit the aesthetic of the accounts you follow on Instagram.
the business case is obvious. The source notes it boosts sales for the retailer and increases customer satisfaction. And to be fair, when a recommendation is perfectly timed, it really does feel like they just get you.
It reduces the cognitive load of searching. That efficiency, being guided directly to the product you didn't even know you needed, is a huge win for the customer. But here's where it gets really interesting. The very mechanism that feels so helpful is the exact same mechanism that should raise alarm bells.
The data privacy dilemma. The sources are very clear that this process does raise concerns about data privacy. So what does this all mean for our autonomy as consumers when our online environment is perfectly sculpted to make us spend money?
Consumer autonomy is eroded when the environment is perfectly tailored for, well, for coercion. When the recommendations get too accurate, it can start to feel manipulative. You start to ask yourself, is this something I truly want? Or is this something the AI knows I'm susceptible to wanting right now based on some emotional vulnerability I expressed somewhere else online?
It's that moment you realize the helpful suggestion is actually a highly effective commercial weapon designed to extract the maximum value from your entire data footprint.
And that requires critical governance. If every aspect of your online life is being vacuumed up and used to predict and influence your spending, we have to demand transparency. We need to know which data streams are going into that model. We need to be able to understand the contract we're making when we trade our privacy for that convenience.
So from the mechanics of spending, let's transition to the fundamental process of learning. AI is now taking on this new, profound role as a virtual tutor.
That's right. Our third pillar moves from retail efficiency to the deeply formative world of the classroom, where AI is trying to individualize education on a massive scale.
For centuries, education has been stuck with this one-size-fits-all model. One teacher, one pace, one curriculum for the average student.
Which doesn't really exist.
Right. And the source highlights the global use of these AI-powered platforms that are designed to finally break that mold and offer truly personalized learning experiences.
These platforms are, in a way, the technological answer to every teacher's dream, which is the ability to clone themselves and sit next to every single student at the same time. They operate on this principle of dynamic, moment-to-moment adaptation.
So the AI doesn't just grade an answer as right or wrong.
No, it diagnoses the path the student took to get to that answer.
How does it do that? What specific metrics is it tracking beyond just a score?
The systems are deeply analytical. They're tracking a whole suite of metrics, not just the final score, but the time spent on a specific part of a problem, how many attempts it took to get it right, common error patterns.
Like repeatedly confusing multiplication with division.
Exactly. Or misinterpreting a certain type of chart. It even tracks behavioral things like response speed, which can be a proxy for confidence levels.
And the output of all that analysis is the personalized learning experience. So how does the system actually adapt to each student's learning pace and style?
It engages in something educators call scaffolding. So imagine a student is struggling with a geometry concept. The AI identifies, based on their past performance, that this particular student learns best through visual and spatial tasks, not abstract formulas.
Okay.
So the system will immediately introduce interactive exercises that use, say, 3D models and drag-and-drop interfaces to help them grasp the concept spatially. Once the student masters that, the AI gradually removes the visual support and introduces the abstract formula. The scaffolding is slowly taken away as they achieve mastery.
And the source also emphasizes the instant feedback. Why is that so critical for learning?
It closes the learning loop. In a traditional classroom, if a student misunderstands something on Monday, they might not get feedback on that mistake until the teacher grades their homework on Thursday.
And by then, they've already built on that mistake.
They've internalized the misconception and built new knowledge on a faulty foundation. Instant feedback lets the student understand why they made the mistake right away, correct it, and reinforce the right understanding while it's all still fresh. It stops errors from crystallizing and just accelerates mastery.
This sounds like the AI is handling almost all of the foundational teaching load, the drills, the practice, the personalized help. So if the software is this hyper-efficient 200/7 tutor, what's left for the human teacher to do?
Well, the benefit reported by educators is tremendous. These tools free up time for more personalized student interactions. We're seeing a fundamental shift in the teacher's function. The AI is handling all the high-volume, low-leverage work, the assessment, the differentiation, the tedious grading of basic facts.
Which allows the human expert to move from being the dispenser of information to being a true mentor.
That's it, exactly. The teacher's time is now liberated for higher-order cognitive work. They can focus on facilitating complex group projects that require collaboration and critical thinking. They can lead Socratic seminars on nuanced ethical dilemmas. Or they can provide targeted one-on-one mentorship to students dealing with complex emotional or learning barriers that no algorithm can really assess.
So they're focusing on the uniquely human parts of learning: judgment, application, character.
Exactly.
Now, the source material is very careful to note the importance of maintaining a balance between technology and traditional teaching methods. If we connect that to the big picture, what are the core elements of learning that even this powerful adaptive AI just can't replace?
The irreplaceable elements are all in the human capacity for inspiration, for nonlinear reasoning, and for emotional intelligence. An AI can teach facts and procedures with an efficiency we've never seen before, but it can't teach creativity. It can't teach complex moral reasoning or how to apply knowledge in novel, ambiguous, real-world situations that require judgment and human intuition.
And that human connection itself.
Absolutely. The machine can't replicate the motivating power of a teacher who sees a student as struggling, maybe shares a personal story of their own academic challenges, and inspires that student to push beyond a limit they thought they had. The teacher provides the why, the motivation, the context, while the AI provides the what and the how. That balance is critical if we want to produce well-rounded, capable humans and not just efficient knowledge processors.
That balance, the machine handling the data while the human provides the wisdom and context, that seems to be a thread woven through all three of the pillars we've discussed.
That is a crucial observation. As we recap these three major waves, healthcare precision, retail convenience, and education personalization, the applications are really diverse, but the engines driving them and the societal trade-offs that result are deeply interconnected.
The technology promises incredible good. It can save lives, save time, optimize our potential. But the fuel for that engine is always the analysis of our most intimate data.
Always.
So let's synthesize this. First, the common denominator here is data and privacy. We've seen that every single one of these advancements relies on analyzing vast personal data sets: continuous health records, granular in-store movement, our social media activity, detailed student performance metrics.
And that reliance is the common thread. It raises this really important question. How do we balance the undeniable immediate benefits with the required sacrifice of personal data? The sources are very clear that without transparency, you can't maintain public trust.
Right. I might be thrilled that an AI caught my pre-symptom illness back in Section 1, but I need to be sure that my most sensitive health data isn't being used to, I don't know, calculate my future insurance premiums or limit my access to certain jobs.
And it's the same in education. You might appreciate the personalized help for your child, but you need to know that a record of their specific learning struggles isn't being permanently cataloged and used against them in a university or job application 20 years down the line.
So what's the challenge for regulators?
It's immense. They have to create frameworks that allow for data utility, letting the AI process this information for good without allowing for data abuse or leakage. The sources really stress the need for systems that prioritize data minimization, robust encryption, and most importantly, user consent that is actually informed and easy to understand, not buried in 50 pages of legal jargon.
Because if these systems fail to protect privacy,
The public backlash will inevitably slow down or maybe even halt the widespread adoption you need to actually get the benefits we've been talking about.
the second big implication is for human labor. We saw the clearest example of job displacement in retail, with the cashier being eliminated. But we also saw that in healthcare, the AI augments the doctor, and in education, it frees up the teacher.
And that's a subtle but profound point. It forces us to draw a clear line between labor replacement and labor augmentation. The displacement happens at the level of the data processor, the person whose job was to perform repetitive, predictable, data-sifting tasks. So while the doctor and teacher are augmented, we have to think about the impact on the medical transcriptionist, the entry-level data entry clerk, the inventory manager, the people whose jobs are now obsolete.
So this acceleration requires a comprehensive societal shift in what we expect from our labor force. We can't just celebrate the efficiency gains without proactively dealing with the systemic shift in required skills.
Absolutely. The source material suggests the future is a race with the machine, not against it. The societies that will benefit the most are the ones that proactively invest, and invest heavily, in continuous education and safety nets for their transitioning workforce. The focus has to be on upskilling people for those inherently human tasks: judgment, creativity, ethical decision-making, relationship management, the skills that AI, for all its power, still fundamentally lacks.
It's a transition from a knowledge-based economy to Maybe a wisdom and strategy-based economy.
That's a great way to put it.
So the path forward, the future outlined in these sources is incredibly dynamic. It's full of things that were previously impossible, from seeing the future of a disease to delivering a perfectly individualized education.
We are, without a doubt, at a pivot point in human history. We're unlocking unprecedented precision and efficiency. But our sources echo a crucial final thought. It is crucial to remain mindful of the ethical considerations that come with them. And that's not a call for hesitation. It's a mandate for intelligent, thoughtful deployment.
So the path forward requires balancing that relentless drive for innovation, the sheer excitement of what's possible, with a steady hand on the social and regulatory rudder. We have to be conscious co-creators of this future.
We have to focus on building systems where the incredible utility of the data is maximized for the public good, while the risk to individual privacy and labor stability is minimized through transparent policies and robust technological safeguards.
That brings us to the synthesis of today's deep dive. Let's quickly summarize the core insights that should really stick with you, the listener. First, in healthcare, AI is leveraging complex data analysis to move diagnostics from curative to truly predictive, allowing for life-saving interventions months or even years before symptoms appear. Second, in commerce, AI is driving hyper-efficiency. It's using computer vision and sensors for frictionless shopping in physical stores, while at the same time integrating our social media lives with our purchasing patterns online for hyper-personalization. And third, in education, AI is completely customizing the learning experience with adaptive scaffolding and instant feedback. This frees up human teachers to focus on the complex interaction, mentorship, and motivation that machines just can't replicate.
And if AI's greatest strength is its ability to detect these subtle, actionable patterns that human experts miss across medicine, retail, and education, here is a final provocative thought for you to chew on. If we applied that same computational rigor, that same fusion of high-dimensional data to the great intractable problems of our age, what are the subtle systemic patterns in our global institutions, in how we allocate resources, in our infrastructural planning, or in regulatory lag, that AI might be best positioned to help us finally see and correct? Next, stay curious and keep exploring the incredible unfolding world of AI.